And we're continuing with the fifth chapter of Mary Poppins Opens the Door, which is called Peppermint Horses. The children, Mary Poppins and Robertson A, have all met Miss Calico, whose dress is covered with pins, and she has offered to give them all peppermint walking sticks in lieu of horses for a pin each, which Mary Poppins has supplied. "Stick 'em in!" shrieked Miss Calico, leaning forward toward them. "Don't mind if they prick. I'm too tough to feel 'em." She pushed their pins in among the others, and her dress seemed to shine more brightly than ever as she handed out the sticks. Laughing and shouting, they seized and waved them, and the scent of peppermint grew stronger. "I shan't mind walking now," cried Michael as he nibbled the end of his stick. A shrill little cry broke on the air, like a faint protesting neigh, but Michael was sampling the peppermint candy and was far too absorbed to hear it. "I'm not going to eat mine," Jane said quickly. "I'm going to keep it always." Miss Calico glanced at Mary Poppins, and a curious look was exchanged between them. "If you can," said Miss Calico, cackling loudly. "You may keep 'em all if you can, and welcome. Stick 'em in firmly, don't mind me." She handed a stick to Robertson A as he stuck his pin in her sleeve. "And now," said Mary Poppins politely, "if you'll excuse us, Miss Calico, we'll get along home to dinner." "Oh, wait, Mary Poppins," protested Michael. "We haven't bought a stick for you." An awful thought had come to him. What if she hadn't another pin? Would he have to share his stick with her? "Humph," she said with a toss of her head. "I'm not afraid of breaking my legs like some people I could mention. Tee-hee! Ha-ha! Excuse me for laughing as if she needed a walking stick." Miss Calico gave a bird-like chirp, as though Michael had said something funny. "Well, pleased to have met you," said Mary Poppins, and she shook Miss Calico's hand. "The pleasure is mine, I assure you, Miss Poppins. Now remember my warning. Always ride. Goodbye, goodbye," Miss Calico trilled. She seemed to have quite forgotten the fact that none of them had any horses. "Peppermint candy, all of it made of the finest sugar," they heard her shouting as they turned away. "Got a pin?" she inquired of a passer-by, a well-dressed gentleman wearing an eyeglass. He carried a briefcase under his arm. It was marked in gold letters, "Lord Chancellor Dispatches." "Pin?" said the gentleman. "Certainly not. Where would I get such a thing as a pin?" "Nothing for nothing, that's the law. You can't get a stick if you've got no pin." "Take one of mine, Duck. I've got plenty," said a large fat woman who was tramping past. She hitched a basket under her arm, and plucking a handful of pins from her shawl, she offered one of them to the Lord Chancellor. "One pin only, bargain prices, never pay two when you're asked for one," Miss Calico cried in her hen-like cackle. She gave the Lord Chancellor a stick, and he hooked it over his arm and went on. "You and your laws," said the fat woman, laughing as she stuck a pin in Miss Calico's skirt. "Well, give me a strong one, Ducky-Doo. I'm hardly a fairy fay." Miss Calico gave her a long, thick stick, and she grasped the handle in her hand and leaned her weight against it. "Feed the birds, tuppence a bag. Thank you, my dear," cried the fat woman gaily. "Michael!" cried Jane with a gasp of surprise. "I do believe it's the bird woman." But before he had a chance to reply, a very strange thing happened. As the fat woman leaned her weight on the stick, it gave a little upward swing. Then, swooping under her spreading skirts, it heaved her into the air. "Upsy-daisy, here I go!" The bird woman seized the peppermint handle and wildly clutched her basket. Off swept the walking stick over the pavement and up across the railings. A long, loud neighing filled the air, and the children stared in amazement. "Hold tightly," Michael shouted anxiously. "Hold tight yourself," the bird woman answered, for his stick was already leaping beneath him. "Hi, Jane, mine's doing it too!" he shrieked as the stick bore him swiftly away. "Be careful, Michael," Jane called behind him, but just at that moment her own stick wobbled and made a long plunge upward. Away it swooped on the trail of Michael's, with Jane astride its pink and white back. Over the laurel bush hedge she rode, and as she cleared the lilac bushes, a crackling shape sped past her. It was Robertson A with his arms full of parcels. He was lying lengthwise along his stick and dozing as he rode. "I'll race you to the oak tree, Jane," cried Michael as she trotted up. Quietly, please. No horseplay, Michael. Put your hat straight and follow me. Mary Poppins, on her parrot umbrella, rode past them at a canter. Neatly and primly, as though she were in a rocking chair, she sat on the black silk folds. In her hand she held 2 leading strings, attached to the twins' pink sticks. All of them made of the finest sugar, Miss Calico's voice came floating up as the earth fell away beneath them. She's selling hundreds of sticks, cried Michael, for the sky was quickly filled with riders. There goes Aunt Flossie over the dahlias, cried Jane, as she pointed downwards. Below them rode a middle-aged lady, her feather boa streaming out on the wind, and her hat was blowing sideways. So it is, said Michael, staring with interest. And there's Miss Lark with the dogs. Above the weeping willow tree, a neat little peppermint stick came trotting. On its back sat Miss Lark, looking rather nervous, and behind her rode the dogs. Willoughby, looking none the worse for the bicycle tire, smiled rudely at the children, but Andrew kept his eyes tight shut, as heights had always made him giddy. Kaplop, or kalop, 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 came the sound of galloping hooves. Help! Murder! Earthquakes! Cried a hoarse, distracted voice. The children turned to see Mr. Trimlet riding madly up behind them. His hands clung tightly to the peppermint candy, and his face had turned quite white. I tried to eat my stick, he wailed, and look what it did to me. Bargain price is only 1 pin. You get what you give, cried Miss Calico's voice. But this time the sky was like a race course. The riders came from all directions, and it seemed to the children that everyone they knew had bought a peppermint horse. A man in a feathered hat rode by, and they recognized him as one of the aldermen. In the distance they caught a glimpse of the matchman as he trotted along on a bright pink stick. The sweep raced past with his sooty brushes, and the ice cream man cantered up beside him, licking a strawberry bar. Out of the way! Make room! Cried a loud, important voice. And dashing along at breakneck speed, they saw the Lord Chancellor. He leaned low over the neck of his stick, as though he were riding a Derby winner. His eyeglass was firmly stuck in his eye, and his briefcase bounced up and down as he rode. Important dispatches, they heard him shout. I must get to the palace in time for lunch. Make room, and away he galloped, and soon was out of sight. What a commotion there was in the park. Everyone jostled everyone else. Get up and whoa there, the riders yelled, and the walking sticks snorted like angry horses. Keep to the left, no overtaking, the park keeper cried as he cantered among them. No parking, he bawled. Pedestrians crossing, speed limit 20 miles an hour. Feed the birds, 2pence a bag, the bird woman trotted among the crowd. She moved through a tossing surge of wings, pigeons and starlings, blackbirds and sparrows. Feed the birds, 2pence a bag, she cried as she tossed her nuts in the air. The park keeper pulled up his stick and shouted, Why, Mother, what are you doing here? You ought to be down at St. Paul's. Hello, Fred, my boy. I'm feeding the birds. See you at tea time, 2pence a bag. The park keeper stared as she rode away. I never saw her do that before. Not when I was a boy. Not even when I was a boy. Here, whoa there. Look where you're going, he cried as a bright pink walking stick streaked by. On it rode Ellen and the policeman, who were off for their afternoon out. Oh, shrieked Ellen. I daren't look down. It makes me feel quite giddy. Well, don't then. Look at me instead, said the policeman, holding her round the waist, as their stick galloped swiftly away. On and on went the peppermint walking sticks, and their pinkness shone in the morning sun. Over the trees they bore their riders, over the houses, over the clouds. Down below them Miss Calico's voice grew fainter every moment. Peppermint candy, bargain prices, all of them made of the finest sugar. And at last it seemed to Jane and Michael that the voice was no longer Miss Calico's, but the faint shrill neigh of a little horse in a very distant meadow. They threaded their way through the crowding riders, bouncing upon their peppermint sticks. The wind ran swiftly by their faces, and the echo of hooves was in their ears. Oh, where were they riding? Home to dinner? Or out to the uttermost ends of the earth? But ever before them, showing the way, went the figure of Mary Poppins. She sat her umbrella, with elegant ease, her hands well down on its parrot head. The pigeon's wing flew at a perfect angle. Not a fold of her dress was out of place. What she was thinking they could not tell, but her mouth had a small, self-satisfied smile, as though she were thoroughly pleased with herself. Cherry Tree Lane grew nearer and nearer. The Admiral's telescope shone in the sun. "Oh, I wish we need never get down," cried Michael. "I wish we could ride all day," cried Jane. "I wish to be home by 1 o'clock. Keep up with me, please," said Mary Poppins. She pointed the beak of her parrot umbrella toward number 17. They sighed, though they knew it was no good sighing. They patted the necks of their walking sticks and followed her downwards through the sky. The garden lawn, like a bright green paddock, rose slowly up to meet them. Down to it raced the Peppermint sticks, rearing and prancing like polo ponies. Robertson A. was the first to land, his stick pulled up in the pansy bed, and Robertson opened his eyes and blinked. He yawned and gathered his parcels together and staggered into the house. Down past the cherry trees trotted the children, down till the grasses grazed their feet, and the sticks stood still on the lawn. At the same moment, the parrot-headed umbrella, its black silk folds like a pair of wings, swooped down among the flowers. Mary Poppins alighted with a ladylike jump. Then she gave the umbrella a little shake and tucked it under her arm. To look at that neat, respectable pair, you would never have guessed they had crossed the park in such a curious fashion. "Oh, what a glorious ride!" cried Michael. "How lucky you had those pins, Mary Poppins!" He rushed to her across the lawn and hugged her round the waist. "Is this a garden or a jumble sale? I'll thank you to let me go," she snapped. "I'll never lose my temper again. I feel so sweet and good," said Jane. Mary Poppins smiled disbelievingly. "How very unusual," she remarked, as she stooped to pick up the sticks. "I'll take mine, Mary Poppins," said Michael, as he made a grab at the sugary handle. But she swung the walking stick over her head and stalked away into the house. "I won't eat it, Mary Poppins," he pleaded. "I shan't even nibble the handle." Mary Poppins took not the slightest notice. Without a word, she sailed upstairs with the walking sticks under her arm. "But they're ours," complained Michael, turning to Jane. "Miss Calico told us to keep them." "No, she didn't," said Jane with a shake of her head. "She said we might keep them if we could." "Well, of course we can," said Michael stoutly. "We'll keep them to ride on always." And indeed, the sight of the walking sticks as they stood in the corner by Mary Poppins' bed was very reassuring. For who, the children fondly thought, would want to steal 4 sticky poles of sugar? Already the pink and white striped sticks seemed part of the nursery furniture. They leaned together with handles locked, like 4 faithful friends. Not a movement came from any of them. They were just like any other sticks, quietly waiting in a dusty corner to go for a walk with their owners. And we will pause there.